Hello and welcome to Sunday's edition, I should say second edition of Cracking the Cryptic, because we released a bonus video earlier on. But today sees the return of that most extraordinary of compilers, Phistomefel. I've noticed we've been getting a bit behind actually with his puzzles, which he publishes on Logic Masters Germany, and that is remiss of us because each and every one of Phistomefel's puzzles is a complete joy to me. And this one today is apparently utterly sensational. I am very excited to try this. It's been recommended copious times already. It's called Yin-Yang Sudoku, completely new variant. Yeah, and I'll read you the rules in just a second. But I mentioned this bonus video earlier on today. I released a video of how to solve GCHQ's, that's the British Intelligence Agency's Christmas bonus puzzle. Or Christmas puzzle, it's not their bonus puzzle, it's our bonus video. And basically this is your opportunity to be the new James Bond, because I heard on the radio from GCHQ itself said that they used puzzles like this to select people to become, or to be recruited basically into their service. So basically watch the walkthrough, send in your CV, and I can almost guarantee that you won't be selected. After all, Mark and I have never been approached by GCHQ, or have we? Now also to think about our new Killer Sudoku app. That is out. It's out on all platforms. It's been getting rave reviews and we're very proud of it, and do check it out if you think you might have some free time over the Christmas period, and I suspect we all think we might have more free time than we were hoping for now. Then do check it out. It's a great way to spend time, and the puzzles are really good. Speaking of really good puzzles, of course, on our Patreon page we have the Tracking the Cryptid Sudoku hunt as well. That is also marvellous. Stefan Bura and Akash Jain strutting there compiling stuff, and we've got more correct entries. You guys keep coming up with the goods. So Jared, now I'm going to say this wrong, I'm going to try though, Viertsbicki, I think, hopefully I didn't mangle that too badly, Jeff DeSura, Ben Wilms and Jason Keeley. Well done to all of you, fantastic solving. Now let's get on to Phistomefel and let's read you the rules of this. Now these rules are cool. We've got normal Sudoku rules apply. Some cells have to be coloured grey. All grey cells have to be orthogonally connected. All white cells have to be orthogonally connected as well. No 2x2 region may be completely covered by grey cells or completely covered by white cells. The clues outside of the grid indicate the sum of all grey cells in the respective row or column. Now that sounds quite complicated, but luckily Phistomefel has produced an example. This is the example. So let's revisit those rules and just see if we can understand it. Obviously this is a 6x6 example rather than a 9x9 example, but certain things I can see here as I stare at the example. All the green cells are orthogonally connected. All of the grey cells are orthogonally connected. There are no 2x2 regions of greys or greens, and the numbers outside the grid are summing the grey cells in their rows and columns. Now, okay, that's great because I can see that this puzzle solves. It isn't necessarily great for how we're going to solve this puzzle, but we shall see. Do have a go at this. I cannot recommend Phistomefel's puzzles highly enough. The way to play is to click the link under the video. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. I have to calm myself down here. I've been really looking forward to doing this one. Now, okay, how do we do this? So my eyes are drawn, I suppose, to the 38 column. So this is summing the grey cells in this column. And I'm just trying to get a handle on this. So we know that at least 6 cells must be grey in this column, but not more than 8 cells. Because obviously if the entire column was grey, that would sum, this clue outside the grid would have to be 45, because that's what the digits 1 to 9 add up to. That's absolutely useless, isn't it? That really isn't... I don't think this is how to start the puzzle. I don't think we can even, for example, say that these 3 cells must be grey, because there's no necessity for the greys to be one unit of coloured cells. You know, you could have a couple of greys here, you could have a couple of greys here, and three, you know, you could have that. That would be a valid arrangement. At least I think it would. Right, so we have to think. Now that's a worry. Why is that a worry? It's because that is the most obvious clue. I mean, I suppose with the 7 clue, we could say that not much of the top row is grey. And with the 27 clue, we can say quite a lot of the bottom row is grey. Right, okay, I know what I'm going to think about, therefore. I'm going to think about actual yin-yang rules. Now, if you are not in the position I am and you've never seen a yin-yang puzzle before, I will let you into a little secret I know about yin-yang puzzles, and that is to do with the perimeter. So let us just for a moment take an excursion. I'm not sure whether this is relevant, but I'm just going to mention it. So let's imagine that square was grey, and let's imagine this square was grey, and let's imagine that, I don't know, that square was green. We would know something at this point quite interesting about the perimeter cells of this puzzle, because we know that all of the greens and all of the greys have to be connected to one another. Now, is it possible, therefore, for example, for this and this to connect to one another by just joining up like that? Could we do that? And the answer is no, because as long as we think that there is at least one green cell to the left of this line we've just drawn, and we know that there must be because there's a 13 clue, 13 is not a 45 clue, therefore there must be a green in this column, you can see that we have prevented this green from attaching itself to the green on the other side of the line. Now, what this means is that in order to connect these two together without breaching the condition that all the greens have to be attached to one another, the only way of doing that is we are going to have to connect along the perimeter like this. And you can see that now when we put the greens into this column, there is still a path, we don't know what that path looks like, but there is a path that connects the greens to each other without sort of crossing a bridge made of grey. Now, does that matter? So what I'm wondering is, now this is really tricky actually. What I'm thinking about is that row 1 of the grid is obviously partially grey and partially green because this is not 45. Row 9 of the grid is partially grey and partially green, so because this number is not 45. So in the top row, I'm getting a bit inarticulate here because I keep having new thoughts, but if I'm also thinking that the 7, however this is made up of grey cells in row 1, I'm not sure you can split them up. So, for example, that arrangement of greys, if all these 3 were greys, that clearly breaks the puzzle, because the 2 greens that are in between them are always going to be isolated. When I attach this grey to this grey, which I have to do under the rules, however I draw the connection, this green can't attach to this green. So what I think we can say with certainty is that in the top row there is a set of greys and a set of greens, but there is only one set of each. So it might be, those are grey and these are green. That would be completely fine, or the other way round. Or it might even be that there's only one grey cell. That could, say it was that one, and then all of these would be green. Although I don't like that at all, because there we know there must be a grey down here, and however we draw to it, Yeah, actually that's an important point, isn't it? That is an important point. We know there's a grey down here. We know there's a grey up here. And therefore either column 1 or column 9 has to act as the conduit attaching those greys to each other. So that's interesting. So if it was a single grey cell acting as this 7 clue, it could only be there, for example. It could only be right in the corner. Because if it was in the corner, we now can attach that to something in this row by coming down this side of the grid. This is why Phistomefel has not given us column 1 and column 9's totals, because if he had, we would know which side of the grid is acting as the conduit for the greys. But as we don't know that, this is a problem. This is a problem. I've still noticed after 10 minutes I've got absolutely nothing in this grid. But I've got absolutely nothing. I've not even got a shaded cell. So one side of this puzzle has to be grey and one side has to be green. How on earth do you tell which? Is it... I'm just wondering if we can actually do it. Can I do it using the 9 clue? Because that is interesting. That is a really interesting thought. If this whole column is green, how do I avoid a 2x2 arrangement of greens somewhere in this column? If this clue only allows me to put in a 9 clue, how many different digits could we make 9 out of? 3. That's the most, because 1, 2, 3 and 4 add to 10. So if I'm only allowed to put 3 grey cells in this column, there is no way of arranging 3 grey cells without leaving a 2x2 green area. It's impossible. You know, even if I try and be as efficient as, you know, it's just impossible. Let's do it slowly. I mean, presumably everyone can see. In order to stop this being a 2x2, I could put the grey here. That also deals with this potential 2x2. But now I've got to deal with this potential 2x2. And I could do that. I can't put one here because that's a 2x2. So I've got to put the grey here. And you can see I'm going to run into a problem here. I've got to now deal with this potential 2x2, which requires a grey there. And now this is a 2x2. So this is incredible. This is just not normal Sudoku logic. Right, so now I am actually going to be able to do something. This column, I do not believe, can be green. So it must be grey. And it must be grey. Let's reiterate why it's grey. It's grey because I need to connect whatever is grey in this row to whatever is grey in this row, and I must do that using the perimeter, because if I don't do it using the perimeter, we've already seen what happens. I basically end up, and it doesn't matter how I connect, you know, greys in the middle to one another. It could be a meandering path like this, but there will, whenever there's a green on one side of this line and on the other side of this line, and you can see just with a quick squiz at the grid there is always going to be, because this 13 clue must have a green in it, this 9 must have a green in it. However I connect those greens together, if I've not used the perimeter and I've done something like this, I will have to cross that region, which is not allowed. So this is grey, and that's huge. This is huge, and we know there's a green in the top row somewhere. We know there's a green in the bottom row somewhere. So this column is green. And, well, this 7 clue is interesting, because that cannot be more than 3 different digits. I can make 7 with 1, 2 and 4, but that's it. So we must, the green must come to here at least, Remember, we can't have, I can't introduce another grey here because, of course, connecting this grey to this grey isolates the greens, don't forget. So that must be grey now, because we must avoid a 2 by 2 in the corner. The 27 is applying to the grey, so 27 is at least 4 cells. And I've still got a problem to think about in column 2. In column 2, I've got the same problem I had with the greens in column when I tried to put the greens in column 9. I've still got to. It's ridiculously clever. I mean, imagine having this as an idea for this puzzle. So how do we place 13? I need as many different digits as I can because I need to stop any of these being in a 2 by 2 green. So the maximum I could make 13 into is 4 different digits, because 5 different digits would add up to a minimum of 15. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. So now we're forced. We have to put those 4 grey digits here. That's the only way we can stop a 2 by 2 being left behind. Hopefully that's fairly visually obvious. I mean, if you try and connect any of these greys together, you'll have a problem now, because how do we avoid this being a 2 by 2? Well, we could put one here, for example. Let's try that. Now, how are we going to avoid this being a 2 by 2? We could put one there, but then we get a problem at the bottom. So we're going to have to separate these out and be as efficient as we can with the 4 greys we've got to work with. The rest of the column, therefore, has to be green, because there can't be more than 4 greys in the column. And all of a sudden, we are off and running, because now these 4 greys have to connect to the rest of the greys in the grid. So none of those squares can possibly be green. So they're all grey. Okay. Can we go further than that? Probably. I would have to work out how. That must be green. Avoid a 2 by 2 in the corner. Oh, 8. 8 must it can be a maximum of 3 cells, and there are already 3 greys in the row. All of those turn green. Now, this is interesting now. Look, these 2 squares can't both be green, because if they were, that would create a 2 by 2 green area. So one of them at least must be grey, and as soon as one of them is grey, it must be at least this one, because otherwise there is a... because it does, because I can't isolate a grey here and put a green there. But let me just show you why, sorry, just in case it's not clear. If we did it this way round, how would I connect this grey to this grey? And again, I'm going to, however I do it, you can see I'm isolating these greens from these greens, which is why the grey must go into this cell. Okay. What now? That's the question. So we've almost got something going on with the 12 clue. A 12 clue can be a maximum of 4 cells, and we've already got 3 in the row. The 13 clue is done. 7 clue is, well, it might be done if this is a 7. I feel like there's something I'm missing up here around this 7 and this 12, maybe this 9 clue, but I'm not sure what it is, so we're going to have to think more. How do we do this puzzle? How do we get further? We can... we can go a bit further along the bottom row, I think. Yeah. This cell, what happens if this cell is grey? And the answer is we've now broken the puzzle. Why have we broken the puzzle, I hear you say? Well, look at this 2x2 region. You can see that if we make this square grey, let's try that first and see why that's broken. Well, that's broken because this 27 clue is impossible now, because we've got 7 cells, 7 grey cells in this row, and the minimum I could make 7 cells add up to is 28. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 adds to 28. So this can't be grey in this situation. Now the interesting question is why it can't be green. And it can't be green because look, this is now a checkerboard. Let's actually look at a checkerboard over here where it's going to be a bit clearer, and it should be easier to show this. Now, if you ever have a checkerboard pattern in a yin-yang puzzle, it's broken. Why is it broken? Well, let's think about how we're going to connect this black cell to this black cell. If it comes round this way, it's only got 2 ways it can go. It's either going to go somehow round the top here or somehow round the bottom. Now, if it comes round the top, it doesn't matter what path it takes. It doesn't matter how sort of meandering that path will be. It will isolate the green inside it. If it comes the other way, on the other hand, it will isolate this green inside its loop. So you'll never be able to connect both of these sets of things orthogonally to one another. It's impossible. Therefore, we can go back to here, and if this is grey, we're either going to have a problem with the 27 or with the checkerboard. So this is not grey, this is green. And now this must be green for exactly the same reason. Now this must come out. Now maybe we get somewhere, do we, with the 38 clue. The 38 clue, well, that can have a maximum of 3 green cells in the column. So it's got 2 at the moment. I don't see how we can really push that logic much further. So that could be grey, that could be grey. They could both be grey. Wow, okay. But isn't this puzzle amazing? And we're still in with a chance of solving it. But we have to think about what we do next. So I have to connect all of these greys to the right hand side of the grid somehow. Oh, that is beautiful. That is beautiful. Look at the 12 clue. The 12 clue can take 1 more grey cell as a maximum in this row. Well, if it didn't take any, let's imagine the 12 clue that we made the 12 out of these 3 squares. All of these would turn green. That would give us 2x2 greens here. That's not allowed. So we know there must be 1 more grey. We can only have 1 more grey. Where is that grey going to be in order to make sure that this there's no 2x2 here and there's no 2x2 here? It must be in that position. That's the only place it can go. The rest of this row turns green. That now avoid a 2x2 green. That's a grey, which means this is a grey. This can't be green or it isolates this grey. How clever is this? This must be grey or it isolates this domino. Oh, this is just beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Now this 7 clue is interesting because those 3 squares add up to 7, so they've got to be 1, 2 and 4. A 9 clue. 12. So this 12 clue now. This cell here can't be 1, 2 or 4. Well, it must be 3, 5 or 6 then, because it can never be 7. You can never have 7 in a 4-cell 12 clue because the minimum you could add to 7 would be 1, 2 and 3, which add to 6. 7 add 6 is, you've guessed it, a knowledge rocket from cracking the cryptic. More than 12. So, unfortunately, that knowledge rocket doesn't seem to have propelled us very far forward. Now, what can we do next? So we've... How long have I had? Oh, 25 minutes, not too bad. There must be a 1 in one of those cells. I don't really know how to pencil mark that. The 38 clue is important now. Why is it important? Well, let's think about what would happen if this square was green. Now we would have 3 cells in this column that were green, and what would they have to add up to? Well, they would have to add up to 7, because we know the whole column adds up to 45, and we know the greys add up to 38. Well, 45 minus 38 is 7. How could this threesome add up to 7? Well, they would have to be 1, 2 and 4, and that breaks row 1 of the grid. You can't make 4 cells equal to 3 different digits. So this, it's just lovely. So this means this square is not green. It must be grey. Now that was a lot. That's beautiful, but it's not done anything. No, it has. It has done something. The 22 clue now. I've got to avoid a 2 by 2 grey in any of these positions. So I can't have many greys in this set of cells. But 22 must be at least 3 grey cells. So I've got to arrange 3 grey cells in these 5 cells without 2 of those grey cells being orthogonally connected, because if any of them are orthogonally connected, we'll create a 2 by 2 grey. So there's only one way of doing that. These must be green. This puzzle is so good. Now we've got greens there because the greens have to get out and connect. Now we're getting a bit of constraint on the 17 now, look. We can have a maximum... Yes, we have. We can have a maximum of 1 more grey cell in the 17 row. Because if we had 6 grey cells in a line, they must add to at least 21. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 is 21. So if we can have 1 more grey cell maximum, if there were no more grey cells, those would all be green. That's a 2 by 2, lots of 2 by 2 greens. So there must be one grey cell to deal with stopping both of these being 2 by 2 greens. Well, that must be the grey, therefore. Those are green. This must come out. How clever is this? It's ridiculous. Now, those 3 squares, look, in the 22 column have got to be relatively high. There's got to be a 9 in one of them, and it's either 9, 5, 8 or 9, 6, 7. And the 17 clue, though, this square can't be 8 or 9. Because if it is, the other 4 cells would break the bank because they would have to add up to at least 10. This can't be 7. Why can't it be 7? Because if it's 7, what would these 4 squares have to be? They'd have to be 1, 2, 3 and 4 to add up to 10. But these 2 squares can't be 1, 2, 3 and 4 because together with those, that would be 5 cells in box 3 that have to be from 4 different digits. That won't work. So this is not 7. And actually, I can see immediately that's quite interesting for this column. Because now, let's think about what must partner the 5 or the 6. If it's a 5, these would have to be an 8-9 pair. If it's a 6, these have to be a 7-9 pair. So you can't have 5 or 6 in either of those cells anymore. Now the 17. Let's revisit the 17 again. I'm not sure, by the way, I'm not sure whether I should be doing Sudoku here or Yin-Yang logic, but the Sudoku is taking my eye, so let's carry on with this. How do you make 17 in 5 cells? Well, there are only 2 ways of doing it. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 7, or 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6. Now we know that we've got a 5, 6 in one of these. So these are 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6. And obviously we can get rid of 1 and 2 from these. They create a 3, 5, 6. In fact there's a 3, 5, 6 triple in the row. So these squares are now a 1, 2 pair. Those squares are 7, 8 and 9. The 3 must be in one of those two squares by Sudoku, so that's not a 3. Oh, actually, look, the 12 clue is a bit restricted now. This is a 5 or a 6. Well, if it's a 5, those 3 squares have got to be 1, 2 and 4 to add up to 7. If it's a 6, these 3 squares have to be 1, 2 and 3. So it's not brilliant, but it's at least a little bit of a restriction on those cells. The 38 clue in column 3 has the 2 green cells outside add up to 7. This one can't be 1, 2 or 4, so that must be 3, 5 or 6. This must be 1, 2 or 4. Oh, nearly, look. Okay. Sorry about this. I'm trying to see whether we can do anything with Sudoku, but I'm not doing very well. Oh, checkerboard. Checkerboard here, look. If this square was grey, let's show you. If that square's grey, this 2 by 2 is a checkerboard, which I've already talked about. That's not possible, so this square is green. Well, that's about the most useless green thing that we could have found. Oh, no, it's not. It's not actually, because look at the grey blob here on the left-hand side of the grid. This grey blob needs to attach to the right-hand grey section somehow. Now, it can't now come through this gate to do that, because if it took those 2 squares... Oh, although could it drop down having done that? I think what I might be about to say was completely wrong. If it did take those 2 squares... Sorry, I'm now trying to resurrect my logic. My logic was flawed when I first said it. I'm now trying to see whether there's a reason I can back into that logic, maybe using this checkerboard thing. This would have to be... Oh, that is it. No, it does work. Sorry, I have spotted a way of rejecting this as coming through. So if this grey blob connects to the grey on the right through here, the answer is it can't. Those 2 can't both be grey. And the reason they can't both be grey is nothing to do with the reason I first thought of, but it is true. It's because if these are both grey, this cell becomes unfillable. Now, why is it unfillable? Well, we can see it can't be green because that will create a checkerboard in this 2 by 2. So we'd have to make this grey. But in making it grey, we've now made 6 cells grey in row 5, which add up to at least 21 and not therefore 17. So we know, coming back to it, that both of these are not grey. Now, if both of these are not grey, this grey region cannot connect to its friends on the right via this gate. So it must connect via this gate. So both of these turn grey, which... Is that helpful? Well, it's a little bit helpful in that it colours a bit more of the grid, but it doesn't actually seem to have done anything. 27... Well, 27 can be... I can take one more grey cell here, or no more grey cells. Oh, I can't have no more grey cells because that would make both of these green, and that would create a 2 by 2 green. So this is sort of a domino, one of each. Ah, the 9 clue. That's interesting. What would happen if this 9 clue was just 2 greys adding up? All of those would turn green. And now look, this grey region on the right is not connected to the rest of the grid. So you can't make these all green, but you can't put more than 1 grey into this line because 9 can't be more than 3 different digits. So there is exactly 1 grey along here. Ah, and this is interesting because wherever that grey goes, it must then keep going, because if it stops, so if for example we go here and then let me show you, if this is grey and then it stops, so it doesn't take this square, because both this would be a 2 by 2, you'd have to do that. Well, in fact, let's actually be more precise. We can be more general than that. It's not because this is a 2 by 2, although that is the case. It's because we can't put any more greys in this column, so these have to be green. And now, of course, what I've done is I've not connected these greys to the rest of the grid. They are still isolated. So, wherever you do extend, whichever one of these cells is grey, it must take the next cell as well. Now, why is that important? It means this can't be grey, because if this is grey, I have to take this one as well, and that creates too long a string of greys in row 7. So that's green, and we've already said that means that's grey because we can't have a 2 by 2. Come on, I think we're right on the cusp of this now. Come on, Simon. Think. How do I disambiguate this? I know what Mr. Goodliff would do. I'm not doing that. I refuse utterly to sully this puzzle with bifurcation. It is not what I'm going to do. I am going to solve this logically because I know Phistomefel wants that. Now, I just need my brain to be clever enough to do that. So what is it that I need to spot here? Or maybe it's more Sudoku I need to do. Is that plausible? What would... how do we get a grip on this? I'm sort of shuffling in my brain between Sudoku and trying to spot what that might mean, and Yin-Yang logic and trying to think about what that might mean. And neither, I'm not spotting anything yet to let you in on a secret, so I'm just going to have to continue to stare. I'm sorry if you're getting cross with me because there's something obvious, but it's always the way with these puzzles. It's only obvious if it's what you're looking at. Now, I might not be looking exactly where you're looking, or I might not be thinking along exactly the same lines as what you're thinking, and therefore it's very easy to get frustrated. Right, come on. So whichever one of these is in, it extends. It's got to extend. So if it was that one, that would be amazing, because that would force the... Oh, that's... Right. We can't have 2 greys there. If we had 2 greys... We can't have 2 greens here, because if we had 2 greens here, it creates a 2 by 2. So at least one of these is grey. Well, if at least one of these is grey, that creates 4 greys in this row. But that means this can never be grey, because if it was, we know we have to take that one for the logic we've been discussing in order to get this grey to connect to the rest of the grid, and that will create far too many greys in this row. So this is green. Now, surely that doesn't work. Surely that doesn't work, because if both of those are grey, yeah, it doesn't work. Beautiful. Okay, let's look at this. If both of the if the way that this connects to the rest of the grid is via this connection, let's look at why this doesn't work. The problem with this is that the 9 clue has now been used up, which means this square has to be green. And now the only way of connecting this to the rest of the grid is via a grey connection there. And look at column 7. It's only got 2 green cells in it. Those 2 green cells have to add up to 21 because the grey cells add to 24 and the column adds to 45. That's impossible. So this is not how the connection is made, which means the connection comes through here, which means that turns green. And now we still haven't connected the grey look, we've just got the start of how that connection works, so this must be grey. Now we must have 3 greens in column 7, so that must be green, that must be grey. We can't have more than 5 greys in row 5, so this must be green, that must be grey, and I'm really hoping that, yes, all the greys are connected, yes, all the greens are connected, there are no 2x2s, QED. That is absolutely beautiful. And now, hopefully, I will be able to do what is now a Sudoku problem and not a Yin-Yang problem. He says, yeah, I can. Well, at least I can start it. 17 in this row, that square can never be bigger than a 7 because the minimum I can make those 4 add up to is 10. So that's 7. These are 1, 2, 3 and 4. This 7 in the 22 clue must be accompanied by 6 and 9, so it's in that order. This is now, these aren't 6, these are a 3, 5 pair, look, which means that one is a 6. That's interesting for the 12 clue. The 12 clue now is not 1, 2, 3, 4, it's 1, 2 and 3 with the 6 to make 12. That gives us a 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 triple in box 1. That's not a 3. That means that's not a 4 because we know those two add up to 7. Whoa! And now I've got a 1, 2 pair in column 3. So this is a 3. That's not 3 anymore. Can we keep this going? We can. No. Yeah, yes, the 8 clue. What goes in this square? What goes in... in fact, that's a 4 as well. Let's actually just clean that pencil mark up first. But what goes in this square? In a 3-cell 8 clue, the maximum digit you can put in is a 5. And this square can't be a 1, 2, 3 or 4 from the column. So that is a 5, which means that's a 6, that's a 1, that's a 2, that's a 1, that's a 1, that's a 2. And we're cooking with gas here. We really are. Now these 2 squares have to be a 1, 2 pair to add up to 8. And there's a 1 there. So that's a 2. That's a 1. By Sudoku, that's a 1. Look. That's just these 1s interacting. These squares are 7, 8 and 9 in some order. That's not 9. That's not 1. So that means the 1 in row 5 has to be in this little square here. That means the 1 in that box has to be there. I might have done all the... Oh no, I haven't done all the 1s. 1 has to be in one of those 2 squares in box 4. As does... in fact, as does 2, just by Sudoku. This is a 1, 2 pair. Oh, the 13 clue has already got... These 2 squares have to add up to 10. And they can't be 1, 9, 2, 8 or 4, 6. This is a 3, 7 pair. Which is lovely, because that means there's no 7 in there, which gives us a 7 here. These two squares are a 5, 6 pair. And no, that's not quite cracked it. Hang on a moment. Oh, bobbins. What do I look for now then? Oh, 27 here. That's a problem in a good way. Those add up to 16, so these 4 squares have got to add up to 11. Well, they've got to therefore be 1, 2, 3, and 5. So these are 2, 3, and 5. That's not 2. And column 9, look at those 3 squares. That's a 2, 3, 5 triple. So this square can't be a 2, that's a 4. That's a 2. That's not a 2 anymore. So 2 in this triple has to be in this square. That fixes the 3. That fixes the 2. That fixes the 3 and the 5. That fixes the 5 and the 3. Good grief. These squares are now 7, 8, and 9. So now, I was just looking at these 2 cells. These have to add up to 13, I think. Because 1, 2, 3, and 5 add up to 11. The grey in the column adds up to 24. So these can't be 5 and 8. So these are 4 and 9, or 6 and 7. I presume there's a way of resolving that, but I can't see what it is. 2 by Sudoku goes in this cell. (27, 18). This domino has to add up to 15, and we know that because we know the row adds to 45, the greys add to 27, these add to 18, 1 plus 2 is 3, so these add to 15, but there's a 7 in the box, so these are 6 and 9, and it still doesn't crack. 6 and 9 into those squares. That tidies up that though. That's not 6 or 9, that's not 9 anymore. 9 must be in one of those 2 squares, so 9's not there anymore. Which fixes the 13, because now these can't include a 9. They can't be 4 and 9. They've got to be 7 and 6, and the order is known, because this can't be 6. So this is 7, this is 6, that's not 7, that's an 8 by Sudoku. That feels like it might be this is 3 by Sudoku actually. So this is 3 by Sudoku. These 2 squares are 4 and 5, which we don't know the order of. These squares here are 4, 6, and 9, which we don't know the order of. I don't think. That can't be 6. This can't be 9. Oh, but these 2 squares are 4 and 8, look, to complete the box. So that one can't be 4 either. That becomes 6. No, still not quite done, is it? This has got to be 4 or 8. Oh, it feels like it's right on the cusp of cracking, I think. Okay, let's carry on with this then. Those squares are 6, 7, and 8, which means that's an 8 by Sudoku. So we'll take that. Oh, very loud buzz on my phone. These 2 squares are 8 and 9. That means we've got a 7, 8, 9 triple here, look. So that square's got to be 4. That's got to be 9. That's got to be 8. That's got to be 4. That means we've got a 7, 9 pair here. That fixes... Oh, in fact, I could have got that probably from that 7, 9 pair if I'd looked at it, but I didn't. Oh, 14 here. I don't think I've even looked at this clue at all. We've already got 3, so those add up to 11. So this is... this can't be a 7. There's already a 7 in the box, so this must be a 6. Nice. We get lots from that. We get all sorts of things. 4 has got to be in one of those 2 cells by Sudoku. Oops, went a bit far with my spacebar pressing there. 5, that's a 7 by Sudoku. These have got to be 5 and 8. Is that doable? Probably is, I just can't see how. These 2 squares, what do they have to be? 2 and 5. Oh, 2 must be. No, it's not. I was about to say we must have resolved 2s by now. I feel like I've put in lots of 2s. 3s as well. I feel like I've done a lot of 3s, but I can't quite tell how to. So how do I finish this off? It must be done by now. Come on, be done. No, that's not where it's at, is it? So there must be something going on. Where are you? 1, 3 and 4 into these squares. So the 1 is over here. This is a 3 or a 4. 1, 3 or 4, 1 or 3. Come on. I don't believe it. It still won't give up the ghost, will it? 8. 8 must be in one of those 2 cells. That's not it either. What? I'm now convinced I'm missing something really obvious. 4, 5, 7 and 9. So this square here is a 4 or a 9. This is a 4, 5. This square maybe. That's got to be 1, 3, 4 or 5. It's got to be 3 or 5. No, that still doesn't tell me the answer. 4, 5, 7 or 9 here. No, this is not good enough. Simon, what have you done? I've almost pencil marked the whole grid. Is what we've done, but we still haven't. 3s maybe. 3s here and here. I mean, 3 is in one of those 2 cells, but we still can't resolve it in them. There must be I think there's a sum I've not done. Where are you, sum? Oh, here it is. It's the 9. This 9, once I got the 3 here, that must be a 5. Once that's a 5, that's a 2. Does that? Yes, that helps, because that gives me an 8 and a 5 here. The 2, perhaps, yes. The 2 gives me the 2 and the 1. That does finish the 3, the 4, the 1. It's so strange how just one tiny digit can make you look like a complete wombat. Now, this square must be 4 or 5. This square's a 5. That's a 4. That's a 5. That's a 5. That's a 6. That's a 6. That's a 9. 9's got to go here by Sudoku. These 2 squares have got to be... What's that going to be? 3 and 8? Yeah, I think so. 3 and 8 go into the grid. 8 must go here. 8 and 4 get fixed. That should be 4. That should be 7. And we just need to tidy up the remainder. So this 8 looks good, doesn't it? 8, 9, 9, 7, 7, 3. Let's make sure we put the right digits in. And this is, I think, the solution to a really, really wonderful puzzle by Phistomefel. I absolutely love that. Let's check. What does that say? Yes, it says it looks good. Now, obviously, the checker is only checking basic Sudoku, so we have to hope that I've done the summations right in the grey cells, but I think everything was logical. It certainly felt like it. So I loved that. Let me know in the comments how you got on, and thanks so much for watching. Back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.